Most men wander through life like sleepwalkers, chasing a mirage of love and validation that always seems to dissolve the moment they reach for it. They pour their souls into relationships, sacrifice their ambitions, and bend their principles, only to be met with indifference, betrayal, or the slow erosion of their dignity. The pain is universal, yet the cause remains shrouded in denial. 2 centuries ago, a German philosopher named Arthur Schopenhauer tore open the veil of romantic idealism to expose a truth so unsettling that most men still refuse to confront it. Love is not a mystical bond, but a biological deception. Schopenhauer's insights were not born of misogyny, but of cold clinical observation. He saw human behavior through the lens of what we now call evolutionary psychology. Long before the term existed, his conclusion? Romantic love is a survival mechanism masquerading as destiny. When a man feels that electric pull toward a woman, that obsessive need to possess her, it isn't his soul recognizing its counterpart. It's his DNA calculating. Subconsciously, his mind is assessing her fertility, the symmetry of her features, a proxy for genetic health, and the potential survival advantages of pairing with her. Women, Schopenhauer argued, operate under the same biological imperative, but with inverted priorities. For them, attraction is a ruthless evaluation of a man's status, resources, and ability to protect, a calculus refined over millennia of evolution. This is not a flaw in women's character, but a feature of their design. Schopenhauer wrote, "Love is the ultimate goal of almost all human effort, but it is merely the individual's illusion of happiness set up by nature to serve her own ends." The illusion, he describes, is the fleeting chemical high of infatuation, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, that hijacks the brain long enough to ensure reproduction, then evaporates. Consider the wreckage left in its wake. Marriages collapsing once the passion fades, men bankrupted by divorce settlements, lives derailed by obsessive pursuits of unavailable partners. These are not anomalies, they are the rule, written into our biology. Modern society, with its fairy tales of egalitarian partnerships and mutual fulfillment, has only deepened the confusion. Men are told to suppress their instincts, to prioritize emotional vulnerability over strength, and to view women as equals in a game where the rules were set long before civilization existed. Dating apps like Tinder and Bumble have turned this asymmetry into a spectacle. 80% of women compete for the top 20% of men, not because women are shallow, but because hypergamy, the drive to marry up, is hardwired. A woman's evolutionary success depends on securing the best possible genetic and material investment for her offspring. Loyalty, kindness, or shared values are secondary to this primal direct. Schopenhauer saw this clearly. Women are suited to being the nurses and teachers of our childhood by the very fact that they themselves are childish, frivolous, and short-sighted, he wrote. Critics dismiss this as misogyny, but Schopenhauer was highlighting an uncomfortable truth. Women's power lies in their ability to leverage youth and beauty, assets that peak early and depreciate rapidly. Men, by contrast, must build their value through struggle, accumulating status, wealth, and competence over decades. This divergence creates a tragic imbalance. A man in his 20th, unless born into privilege, is invisible to the women he desires. By his 40th, when he's finally accrued the resources to attract them, his choices are narrowed to younger women seeking security or peers disillusioned by past relationship. The tragedy deepens with what Schopenhauer called the comedy of possession. Men believe that winning a woman's affection guarantees lasting devotion. But for women, the thrill lies in the chase, the zheng fu of a high-value man. Once committed, the dynamic flips. The man who once played hard to get becomes predictable, his value diminished by his availability. This explains why men who center their lives around a woman watch her drift away, while those who maintain independence, pursuing purpose over partnership, retain their allure. The biological mandate is clear. Women are drawn to men whose value exists independently of them. Yet modern men remain trapped in a paradox. They're shamed for wanting traditional masculinity while being bombarded with images of alphas dominating social and romantic hierarchies. They're told to reject toxic traits, yet women still gravitate toward confidence, assertiveness, and ambition. Qualities society labels as problematic. The result is a generation of men caught between two worlds, one demanding they suppress their instincts, the other punishing them for doing so. Schopenhauer's analysis cuts deeper. He divided men into two categories, those who serve and those who are served. The beta exhausts himself trying to prove his worth through acts of devotion, gifts, compliments, unearned loyalty. The alpha commands devotion effortlessly, not because he's cruel, but because he recognizes the game. He invests in himself first, knowing that scarcity, not generosity, drives attraction. The beta mistakes love for a transaction. If I sacrifice enough, she'll reward me. The alpha understands it's a negotiation. My value is non-negotiable. This is not a call to manipulate women, but to recognize the rules of engagement. When a man makes a woman his sole purpose, he surrenders his power. His happiness becomes contingent on her approval, a precarious foundation that invites resentment. Schopenhauer warned, "To be loved, one must not be just, but clever." Cleverness here is not deception, but self-awareness. The ability to see through societal myths and align with reality. The stakes are higher than ever. Social media has turned attention into a currency, and women are its most skilled traders. Platforms like Instagram and TikTok allow them to monetize their allure, amassing followers, sponsorships, and influence by catering to male thirst. The average man, oblivious to the game, becomes an unpaid laborer in this economy, liking, commenting, and simping in the vain hope of reciprocity. He confuses a woman's curated persona for genuine interest, not realizing he's one of thousands in her digital harem. Schopenhauer's most jarring revelation is that female love is conditional by design. It is tied to utility. What a man provides, not who he is. This is not a moral failing, but an evolutionary necessity. In a world where survival hinged on resourcefulness, women who prioritized utility over sentiment passed on their genes. Modernity hasn't erased this instinct, it's disguised it. A man today might not hunt for food, but he's expected to hunt for status, wealth, and security. The moment he stagnates, he becomes expendable. The philosopher's work forces a reckoning. If love is biological theater, what's the solution? Resentment? Cynicism? Schopenhauer offers a different path. Clarity. The man who sees the game for what it is stops blaming women and starts mastering himself. He recognizes that female nature isn't personal, it's programmed. His task isn't to change the rules, but to play them with open eyes. The greatest trick nature ever played was convincing men that the battle for love is fought on a level field. It isn't. Women wage war through invisible means, emotional manipulation, social intuition, and the quiet erosion of male resolve. While men clench their fists or flex their logic, women conquer through perception. They don't demand, they influence. They don't confront, they navigate. Schopenhauer called this the tyranny of the weak, the power to control stronger adversaries through calculated vulnerability. Consider the dynamics of a modern relationship. A man believes he's leading, unaware that every interaction is a test. The compliance test. Will he cancel plans with friends to satisfy her whims? The frame test. Will he apologize for a disagreement he didn't cause? The investment test. Will he double text after she leaves him on read? Each concession, however small, chips away at his autonomy. Women, Schopenhauer noted, are instinctively crafty in these maneuvers. It's not malice, it's evolutionary programming. In a world where physical strength meant survival, women honed emotional intelligence as their weapon. The ones who couldn't read micro expressions, detect insecurity, or subtly steer male behavior died out. Modern men are outgunned in this invisible war. They're taught to equate vulnerability with strength, confessing insecurities and sacrificing boundaries in the name of trust. But Schopenhauer saw the trap. Women are systematically trained to be incapable of genuine love. By genuine, he meant unconditional. Female love is pragmatic, tethered to a man's utility. When his utility fades, when he loses his job, stops growing, or prioritizes her over his purpose, the love followed. This isn't cruelty, it's Darwinism. The data bears this out. Over 70% of divorces are initiated by women, often citing unhappiness rather than abuse or infidelity. Modern no-fault divorce laws and asset-splitting norms incentivize this, turning marriage into a financial gamble for men. Schopenhauer, writing in the 1800s, foresaw the legal and emotional minefields. To marry is to have your rights and double your duty. His solution was radical celibacy, but for most men, abstinence isn't the answer. Reinvention is. The path to liberation begins with three pillars: economic sovereignty, philosophical depth, and physical mastery. Economic sovereignty is the first pillar. Money, Schopenhauer wrote, is human happiness in the abstract. It's not wealth itself, but the freedom it buys. The ability to walk away from toxic relationships, exploitative jobs, and societal pressure. The modern man must treat finances as a martial art. Invest aggressively, live below your means, and diversify income streams. Financial dependence is the quickest route to enslavement. Philosophical depth is the second pillar. Most men live on autopilot, regurgitating societal scripts. The exceptional man cultivates a mind sharp enough to dissect them. Read Nietzsche on power, Marcus Aurelius on resilience, and yes, Schopenhauer on pessimism. Debate, travel, and question everything. A man who thinks for himself cannot be manipulated. Physical mastery is the third pillar. The body is the battleground of the will. Weakness here, flabbiness, lethargy, poor posture, signals vulnerability. Strength isn't vanity. It's a billboard advertising discipline and self-respect. Lift weights, master a combat sport, and refine your appearance. The body and mind are not separate, they're one system. These pillars form what Schopenhauer called the foundation of invincibility. But the true rebellion lies deeper. It's the realization that female validation is not the prize. Self-actualization is. History's most influential men, artists, inventors, warriors, weren't distracted by chasing women. They were too busy building legacies. Van Gogh didn't paint to impress a muse. He painted because his soul demanded it. Steve Jobs didn't innovate to attract groupies. He sought to dent the universe. The man who makes his mission non-negotiable becomes a gravitational force. Women orbit him, not the reverse. This shift requires brutal honesty. Modern men are addicted to potential, the fantasy that the right woman will complete them. Schopenhauer dismissed this as the will to live's trick. Happiness, he argued, is an internal state. The man who seeks it externally through love, status, or material gain is chasing shadows. The safest way, of not being very miserable, he wrote, is not to expect to be very happy. This isn't pessimism, it's emotional armor. Lowering expectations doesn't mean settling, it means focusing on what you control. The final enemy is not women, but the lies men tell themselves. She's different. This time it's real. If I just try harder, Schopenhauer's antidote is cold truth. You are the common denominator in your failures. The man who blames women for his unhappiness is still asleep. The man who takes radical accountability for his finances, health, and choices awakens. The red pill is not misogyny. It's the refusal to live in delusion. It's recognizing that biology is not destiny, but ignoring it is suicide. Women are not villains. They're players in a game older than civilization. The awakened man doesn't resent the game. He masters it. He builds a life so compelling, so rich in purpose and passion, that women must rise to his level or watch from the sidelines. Schopenhauer's legacy is a challenge. Will you cling to fairy tales, or will you see the world as it is? The choice is yours. Slavery or sovereignty. The game never ends. But now, at least, you know the rules.